দর্শক শুভেচ্ছা, স্বাগত সবাইকে চলতে চলতে অনুষ্ঠানে। আপনাদের সঙ্গে থাকছে আমি মাহফুজ মিশা। আজকে আমাদের অতিথি নোবেল বিজয়ী বিজ্ঞানী স্যার রিচার্ড রবার্টস। Sir Richard Roberts, most welcome to our show Cholte Cholte.
Thank
and
you.
most welcome to Bangladesh also. How are you?
Thank you. I'm very well.
Yeah, it's our great privilege to get you in Bangladesh. You are a big scientist, you are a big inspiration for the young professionals and young researchers here in Bangladesh. We'd like to hear the story of your life. You were born in 1943.
That's right.
So it's about 57 and 74 years you now. So I want to know
So
about
73.
it. 73, 74. It's a big time.
It will be 74 later this year.
Yeah. We want to know about your parents firstly. Your father was a motor mechanic, as we
Right,
know, and
yeah,
your mother
yeah.
was a homemaker.
Homemaker, right. Yeah.
Homemaker. Can you recall them? Can you recall your childhood? Can you
Oh,
please
very
tell us
well.
some
Yeah,
memories of your
yeah.
childhood? How you were then?
Well, I grew up in England right after the war, so there was limited food available. Food was rationed. Candy was essentially non-existent. I grew up in a relatively poor household. We didn't have a lot of money, but I never thought of myself as poor. I always thought I was doing okay. I lived at a time when it was possible kids could go out and play in the streets, and there was no one worried about it, and you had a lot of freedom. Not the kind of life that one has in the US, for instance, at the moment, where parents are very scared to let their children do anything worthwhile. I got into plenty of trouble and loved it, and I had a very
Your
happy
parents
childhood.
don't have enough money, but you don't feel yourself anytime poor. Why?
No. I grew up in a loving household. Well, it wasn't a problem. We couldn't afford books, but we had a local library, so I'd go to the library and read in the library, and it all worked out just fine. I used to earn a little bit of money from a paper round. I'd deliver papers, and that provided enough money to keep me going.
So from the very beginning, you love to read the books.
Yes, always.
From the very beginning, you were a very good student. You love to read physics, and you like to solve the puzzles. Why?
I like mathematics and I like puzzles. And I don't know whether it was because of the headmaster at my junior school who sort of gave me puzzles to do on the side, or whether it was just something that I wanted to do and he just fed my career. But anyway, as a result of that, I ended up loving puzzles and mathematics. I've always liked mathematics. I thought I would probably become a professional mathematician. But then I discovered chemistry. I discovered fireworks. And from then on, I have wanted to become a chemist. And so that I did until I went to
Sometimes
university.
you want to be a detective.
Well, I read a book entitled How You Become a Detective, and that sounded like a lot of fun. I had in mind a sort of criminal detective, not what I really am, but now I'm a detective. However you look at it, I do research, I try to discover things, I'm a detective.
So a person who wanted to be a detective, who wanted to be a chemist, he suddenly he became the microbiologist.
Molecular biologist, yeah.
Molecular biologist.
But that's because I read another book. Okay, and that book was called The Thread of Life by a man called John Kendrew, who was a Nobel laureate, and it was talking about the early days of molecular biology. And by the time I finished that book, I wanted to become a molecular biologist, and I did.
So
I'm a big believer in reading, because I think this is one area where you can read outside of your subject, read about things that you maybe know nothing about, and all of a sudden decide, hey, this is what I want to do. It sounds like fun, let's do it.
And you won the most prestigious Nobel Prize in 1993.
Yes, right.
Can you please brief us for which work you got this prestigious prize?
Well, it was for discovering that the layout of genes in eukaryotes, in higher organisms, is different from the way they're laid out in bacteria. In bacteria, they're just a continuous piece of DNA. In higher organisms, they're split up into pieces, bit here, bit here, bit here. You make a copy of the whole thing, and then you cut and splice in exactly the way that an editor in a film studio would make a film. He shoots scenes here and there, and then cuts and splices to make a continuous whole. And that's how genes in eukaryotes are processed in order to make functional messenger RNA that makes protein.
So a son of a motor mechanic can be the best professor, can be the best scientist, and can win the Nobel Prize. And you said this example.
Well, but let's step back a little bit, okay? I'm not the best. I'm okay, but I'm not the best. Winning a Nobel Prize, a lot of that is luck.
But you are one of the best.
I'm okay. I think I do okay, but I know a lot of people who are smarter than I am. My younger son is smarter than I am, for instance. So, but I'm lucky. I'm one of the luckiest people you know. And the nice thing about doing research is you make discoveries. You get a lot of enjoyment from making discoveries. And if you're lucky, one of them is a big one. And in my case, it was big enough to win a Nobel Prize. But luck plays a huge part in that.
Yeah, luck, obviously luck is a great factor, big factor. But besides this, you have pride, you read lots, you research a lot, and that's why now you are in this place.
Yeah, it's true.
So which one is the big factor? Your readings, your writings, or your luck?
I think I honestly think luck is the most important thing for me. I am the luckiest person you know. I'll tell you a story. You know about the aircraft that went into the Twin Towers in 9/11?
Yeah.
Right? Huge event. I was booked on that plane until about 2 weeks before the incident. And I was going to a meeting in California. The date of the meeting was moved forward by 1 day. And so I took that plane 1 day before the plane that went into the Twin Towers. Now, if that's not luck, I want to know what is.
So how do you connected with Bangladesh, especially how you are connected with this university, North-South University?
Well, Rita Colwell, who sort of put together the Scientific Advisory Board here, is an old friend of mine. And she asked me if I would be interested in being on the Scientific Advisory Board, and she twisted my arm and I said yes. And so we had the first meeting last year, and it was interesting. I was invited actually to come over this time in order to deliver the convocation address, but of course the convocation got moved, and so I just ended up doing the GMO lecture. But I also wanted to see what the university was about and find out something about the students and the faculty and what might be possible, so that in future I can give some good advice.
So how do you evaluate the education system or education as well as the research of Bangladesh? Bangladesh is a very progressive country. Now we are moving forward.
Okay, so I don't know very much outside of NSU. So I know a little about what is going on here. I've been impressed with the staff. I think the staff that I've met have been pretty good, quite exemplary. Some of the students that I've met I thought were quite good. I'm certainly impressed with the buildings and what has been put together and what philanthropy can do. And so I actually, if there's some way I can contribute, I will.
You are a big advocate of genetically modified food and genetically modified technology. Why you support this? We want to hear your explanation. Before that, we have to take a short break. দর্শক ছোট্ট একটা বিরতি নিচ্ছি, ফিরছি একটু পর, আমাদের সঙ্গে থাকবেন নিশ্চয়ই। দর্শক বিরতির পর স্বাগত আরেকবার। আমরা কথা বলছিলাম নোবেল জয়ী বিজ্ঞানী স্যার রিচার্ড রবার্টের সঙ্গে। Robert, the question I want to ask you, you are a big advocate of genetically modified food, and you know there are many protests in against of this all over the world, especially the environmentalists, and they said it changed the main crop, the original crop. Why you support this?
Because there has been a lot of scientific mistruths told by the anti-GMO people. And I don't like it when people lie about science. And what has happened is that we have been genetically modifying food for the last 12,000 years. The GMO method just happens to be the most precise method. It is actually way safer than any traditional breeding that we've done. But for the GMO people, the anti-GMOers, they got everybody scared in order to raise money for their NGO and in order to get some political power in Europe. It had nothing to do with whether or not they are dangerous.
So there is a socio-political and economical background behind.
Right. Yeah. You know, if you ask almost anybody why are they doing what they're doing, they often will tell you one thing, But then when you dig deeper, you discover it's the money. Greenpeace are one of the best funded NGOs in the world at the moment, and a lot of their success in raising money came because of their stance against GM foods.
So, like a density populated country, not like your country, you are British, or now you live in America, like a density populated country and low land like Bangladesh, genetically modified food should be, government should inspire this kind of activities.
Yes, and in fact the government does. The government has done a pretty good job so far. But the bottom line, I think, with all developing countries is that most of the food that is produced and that you eat is not food that the big Western agricultural companies have tried to improve crops and yields and so on. And so you need to do it yourself. And the last thing you want is someone who has no interest, no business interest in it, telling you not to do it for reasons that are completely wrong. Okay? If you want to get more of a particular crop from a piece of land, there are ways you can often do that using GM techniques by putting pest-resistant genes in that can save pesticides, but it can give you maximum value out of the land. And so in this way you can grow more food on the same piece of land. That seems to me a good thing. It means that land will be saved. You can use that land for conservation purposes or whatever you want to use it for. And I think this is a good thing. It's good for the country. And the nice thing about it is that you have very good plant scientists here. The methodology is actually getting to be very straightforward. It will get better with time. And why would you not do it? But we've been doing it for so long to make better crops. You know, if you look at almost every crop that is grown, it doesn't look like the wild type ancestor anymore because we've been busy crossing it and making it better, but using techniques that are not as precise and not as safe as the GM method.
Sometimes they raise the question about ethical issues. Is it ethical to change any crops?
So why didn't they ask that 12,000 years ago when they started changing the crops so that we could all eat? Okay. Is eating ethical? Is it okay to, make changes in foods so that you can eat them and survive? The ethical argument is crap, frankly.
So you think this is essential to ensure the food security all over the world?
Yes.
It's a huge world and huge population.
It is. Yeah.
So
the thing is, the reason that the Europeans and Greenpeace and the Green parties have got away with this is because Europe doesn't need GM crops.
Yeah.
The US doesn't
because
need.
They have sufficient.
They have plenty of food, right? But much of the developing world does need them because the populations are rising, the amount of food available is limited, distribution is not so good. And with GM methods, you can make foods that the smallholder farmers can grow in their backyards perfectly okay. Why not help them do that?
Sir, we want to know about your dream, but before that we have to take again a short break. দর্শক আবার ছোট্ট একটা বিরতি আমরা কথা বলবো নোবেল বিজয়ী বিজ্ঞানীর সঙ্গে আমাদের সঙ্গে থাকছেন নিশ্চয়ই দর্শক স্বাগত আরেকবার আমরা কথা বলছিলাম নোবেল জয়ী বিজ্ঞানী স্যার রিচার্ড রবার্টের সঙ্গে সো ইফ ইট ইজ হোয়াই ইউনাইটেড নেশনস অর ইন্টারন্যাশনাল অর্গানাইজেশন নট টেকিং এনি অফিসিয়াল স্টেপস to promote or make it official stands because even have a lot of member countries.
Yeah, but it's because Greenpeace and the Green parties have spent so much time and effort and money telling lies in order to scare people. And so once you scare people, it is very difficult to reassure them that it's all okay. The time has come when Greenpeace should just admit this is an issue they got wrong. Right? Maybe when they first got started, they have some good motives behind it because it was a new technology. But now all the experiments have been done for 30 years. People have been growing and eating these things. There is not one incident, not one adverse incident has come in that time. Why would you now still say they're dangerous?
So their money and their pressure is much more higher than the member countries of UN even.
Yeah.
How it's possible? How does it possible?
Right.
Because UN member countries are...
But when you scare people, right? This is the oldest political trick in the book. You scare people and you say, I will save you from this scary thing, right? When the Twin Towers happened, the US government said, let's put in airport security. We now spend probably $1 trillion a year around the world on airport security to protect against a few radical Islamists and terrorists and people who want to do damage. I mean, that is a lot of money being wasted.
So there is a
You could probably use that here in Bangladesh quite effectively without, well.
So, sir, so there is political economy in every aspect, even in behind the science also.
I don't see the politics behind the science, but still, what are the politics behind the science?
Political economy of if we want to promote GSM food, then some people are protesting, and they have done it through their power as well as their money. That's why I called it political economy.
Right, and the plant scientists tried to tell the truth about what was going on. And so what did Greenpeace do? They say, well, you're plant scientists, you have a vested interest in this, and not only that, most of you get support from the agribusiness of one sort and another, because that's where the money is. That's where you can get the money to do your research. The reason that I started this campaign is because I have no vested interest. I'm not a plant scientist, okay? But I have a bully pulpit. I have people will listen to me. When I talk, they listen to me. But I benefit, I get nothing out of this. I don't get anything out of this. And my fellow laureates, we have 123 of us, are all sending the same message. We're getting nothing out of this. We're not financed by the plant industry.
Robert, sometimes in Bangladesh, last day you have talked about science and politics. Politics is also a science, political science? They say it, they claimed. So
It's
is
not
there any
science.
correlation between politics and science?
I don't think so. If the politicians would listen to the scientists, perhaps there could be. But in general, politicians don't listen to science. They listen to whoever will tell them how to get the most votes. That's what they're looking for.
How do you evaluate the overall research situation in the world?
Well,
How do you evaluate
I
the
think it is variable. It depends which country you go to. So in many countries it's good. China is doing well at the moment. They're putting a lot of money. I doubt if he'll be successful because in general Congress likes science, and so I think they will support it. But in general I think science is reasonably well funded in many countries.
My last question, what's your dream? That dream is not fulfilled yet.
So I love bacteria, and I think bacteria, we can learn a lot about them, and I'm rather hoping that before I die we will learn how one of them works, so that we can say here we finally understand something that is alive.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable time. Thank you. দর্শক, শেষ করছি আজ, কথা হবে পরবর্তী পর্বে নতুন কোনো অতিথির সঙ্গে। সে পর্যন্ত ভালো থাকবেন সবাই।